This week on Next Gen NYC.
Georgia, you should be grateful that you have
stupid
this.
delusional bitch.
You are a
really.
stupid delusional bitch.
Everyone here hates you.
Bro, you would not be on the show if it weren't for me.
What are you? You still get money from your dad, 10K a month in allowance. You're who's never had to work in their life.
Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to We're going to be talking about the new episode of Next Gen NYC Season 1, Episode 5. Let's get right into it. Alright, so we begin this episode right where we left off last week. Ariana just found out that Ava said something shady about the brand that she's working on. She took it very personally. She was upset, rightfully so. So by the time Ava, approaches her and sits next to her, she asks Ariana, "Are you okay?" And then Ariana's like, "Are you? Why are you coming for my brand that you don't even know about?" And Ava says, "Babe, I didn't mean to come for your brand. All I said was I was surprised that you were saying you moved to New York to start a fashion brand." So then Gia is getting in there and she's asking, "Well, why is it surprising?" And Ava says, "Well, usually when I see someone who has a fashion brand, I can usually see with what their vision is or what their point of view is." And Gia says, "Oh, so are you saying that she has no style? Everything you are saying is insulting." Now here's my thing. Is it nice when a friend sticks up for you? Absolutely. However, there are people like Gia who overdo it. Like, this was supposed to be a back and forth between Ava and Ariana. Now Gia has made it between her and Ava. Like, no, Gia, pipe down. I get you're trying to defend your friend, but it comes across as you're trying to get in this and you're just doing too much. So let Ava talk and let Ariana handle this because she's more than capable of doing it. Ava does have to say to Gia, let me finish. She then says, Ava says, if Georgia were to tell me she was starting a fashion line, I would understand it because I see her point of view. I can't see yours. So Ariana's like, are you really saying that you can't see me having a brand? Like, you're singling me out? And Ava's like, it's not that big of a deal. Sorry that I hit an insecurity. So then now Gia is putting her hands in Ava's face saying, "I'm Italian, that's how we are, get over it." Again, I am Team Ariana, but she can defend herself. Gia is annoying. In the middle of this argument, they bring out a cake for Chloe, so they end up singing happy birthday, and Ariana and Hudson just leave. So that was it for the night. It is then the next day, we see Georgia with her friend Danny, who they both created their own event company with each other. She says that Gen Z wants to be they want to be entrepreneurs. They don't really want to have a boss, which, as someone who is Gen Z, I kind of agree with her. We don't want no bosses, but it is what it is. Meredith Marks is actually having a caviar party, and Georgia and Danny are planning it. Looks like Danny is more focused, talking about this is what we need to do. This is what we have. This is what we still need to do, blah, blah, blah. Georgia seems to be a little bit more on the chilling side. Then we see Meredith and Brooks go look at some pieces of fashion. Fun fact, we learned that apparently Brooks has styled his mom for a while now. So a lot of the looks that she's had in the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, he's been behind them. So they also talk about the party for Meredith and her caviar. It looks like Meredith and Georgia have had a great communication. It was funny hearing Georgia describe how nice and how peaceful and how pacifist Meredith is. And the editors are showing her most unhinged moments like, "You can leave." So anyway, they're looking at clothes. Brooks is giving his input. He then tells one of the ladies there, "My mom and I have a tumultuous work relationship. She fired me last week." And Meredith's like, "Well, why don't you say why I fired you? Because you missed an email and that would have caused her denims not to get there on time." Meredith then says to him, "Well, I didn't really fire you." And Brooks then pulls out the text that Meredith had sent him that day. It was a long text where she was like, "You need to be finding a new job by the end of this month because I am fuming over the way you handled this." And, Brooks, I love Brooks. But sorry, Brooks, if you want to be the assistant, director, creative, whatever the hell it's called, for somebody, like, let's say you had that same job for somebody else that wasn't your mom. If you would have forgotten to send that email, they would have cussed you out too. Okay? So, come on now. So we then see little clips of the cast in their element, doing their influencer stuff, like filming TikToks, getting ready, doing this, doing that. Then we get to Dylan and Charlie, who went to sleep at 6 in the morning, which I think that's disgusting. Like, listen, partying, okay, people like to party, I get it, but like when that becomes your lifestyle, that can be so detrimental. Riley then goes over to Ariana and Hudson's place, and oh my god, you guys, they looked so much like their moms. It's literally, it feels like we went back in time and it's young Candy and young Kim that are meeting up. It's so crazy. So they talk about what happened with Ava. Ariana's like, listen, she doesn't even know me well enough to be saying this. Riley says, well, yeah, and not to mention that she has always said that her mom picks her outfits out. So if she's not even the one who styles herself, she doesn't really have a right to be talking about somebody else's style. And as they're talking, poor Hudson is trying to turn on the oven, and it is not working. It was a struggle. All right, so moving right along, Ava and Charlie meet up. A lot of the fans had been saying that they think Ava has a crush on Charlie, and maybe that's why she came for Ariana, because remember, he was like, oh, I'll sleep with her if I could. They might be onto something, because I paid attention to her mannerisms around him, and it does look like maybe she's into him. Anyway, so there's this restaurant called Slutty Vegan. The owner had 3 locations. He said that he couldn't handle all 3. So Ava's dad, Damon, offered to take over one of them. So that's why Ava and Charlie are here in this location, just looking at it, because Damon is going to change this up a little bit, get it up and running again. And then as they're here, Charlie is texting Georgia because she borrowed his speaker and she hasn't returned it yet. Ava then asks him, are you still really good friends with Georgia? Because when I met y'all were like besties. And Charlie's like, yeah, she was living at my house for a while. She was homeless. She was basically eating my scraps. I was like, damn. So speaking of Georgia, her and her boyfriend go eat dinner. Something crazy happened today, though. The venue of the place where she was planning Meredith's event, yeah, they got an eviction notice. And also, nothing against Georgia, but she looks a little unorganized. But she did do her best to make some calls, figure it out, and they did end up getting another place for Meredith's event. So she fixed it. So the boyfriend tells her, can we address the elephant in the room? He then says, I love you. So I'm not sure if that was the elephant. But yeah, he says that he loves her, and she's going back and forth with him a little bit about how can she know that he means it. They've only known each other for 2 months. She says that she thinks her trust issues derive from her dad and what he did to their family. They also kind of establish that they are exclusive. So it's the day of the party, and Meredith is arriving, so is Seth. Georgia then is getting a call from Charlie, and he's, she thought it was something super important, but no, he's calling and saying, hey, can I get my speaker back? And she's like, babe, you're going to get your item back, I promise, but you're literally coming to this party right now. Do you need it before you come here? Like, this is not the right time to be calling about this. So everyone begins to arrive. It was packed. We saw Teresa and her husband, Luis. All the people from the group were there as well. One of the guys who we've met before, Shai, he was being super nice, super, just respectful and well-mannered. He actually approached Seth and Meredith, and he just said, like, hey, just want to let you know that the caviar was amazing. Thank you so much for having me. All this stuff. Just being nice. What does Seth ask him? Are you sexually fluid? And then, Meredith needed to, stop him, because that's just weird. Seth, if you're fluid, just come out. Stop asking people that are half your freaking age about it. Ava got there super late, towards the end. She did end up texting Ariana after they left that other party, basically saying she never wants to come for another woman in her business. Also, she feels a little weird because Teresa, Gia's mom, followed her but then unfollowed her on Instagram, and I think that's a bit much. Teresa, you must not have that much going on ever since your show got paused. Why are you following and unfollowing people half your age also? Like these adults, they're something else. So as the party is about to end, Charlie is making plans, asking everybody if they want to go to Bronx, which is apparently some super high-end exclusive club in New York, but it's pretty expensive, and they all agree to chip in. Okay, so it is the next day, and we see Candy. Candy as in, every man wants a woman. Yes, Todd was there too with the young kids. It was great to see Candy again. Riley is telling her that she really likes New York and, she still wants to figure it out a little bit more. And Candy's like, oh, well, we did say that in 6 months you needed to figure it out and, get a job or something. And she asks Riley, what are your options? Riley says, well, I want to do something that you haven't done, like being a DJ. And Candy says, law school is still off the table. Candy says, we've always talked about ever since you were little that you were going to be a lawyer. And I was thinking, well, Candy, maybe Phaedra could talk to Riley, give her some tips. Just kidding. But yeah, I get it. Listen, if I were Candy, would I want their career to be a DJ? No, of course not. So I totally get where Candy's coming from. So then Ariana joins them, and you can tell that Candy is genuinely happy to see that Riley and Ariana are friends, especially now that Ariana is saying that they've gotten super close. Since she moved here, they've gotten super close. So then Todd asks, so who's the dude y'all had been having issues with? They're like, oh, Charlie. And then Riley's like, well, apparently he's mad at me now. And Candy's like, why? What happened? So y'all remember that, he was going around and everyone was going to chip in to go to the club after Meredith's party? Well, they did go. Riley actually paid the total amount they were going to then after that, give her the money afterwards. But she paid everything. Charlie invites 10 random girls. Riley couldn't even sit on the damn table that she paid for. And the 1942 bottles that she bought, these girls and everybody else was drinking them. And Candy's like, I'm paying for 1942 bottles? It better not be on the card that I paid for. What was the total? And Riley says that the total was $14,000. Candy starts hitting her with a napkin. Girl, what? But again, she's only going to pay for half of that, and people are going to chip in, give their little part. But yeah, Riley paid for it all, and then they'll send their part. But it's still ridiculous. That amount of money for one night, unbelievable. So Dylan and Charlie meet up. Apparently when Riley kicked Charlie out at the table, she had also said, and I don't even want your money, keep it. And obviously he has no shame, so he's not going to give it to her, He's that type of person that, if you say something to him, he'll take it. He won't be he won't have that common courtesy and be like, oh, well, no, I should still pay, I did go. No, he's not. Dylan is the OnlyFans guy. He's kind of like a floater, and he likes to be around. He says he likes to be around these nepo babies who will pay for him. Which is that the most horrible thing ever? No, I mean at least he's being honest. If I was one of his rich friends, though, I would be a little concerned. Is that the only reason you're friends with me? But no, he seems cool. Okay, so then Georgia, Riley, Ariana, Gia, Hudson, Brooks, Amelia, and her boyfriend are all hanging out. Georgia had lost her phone. Turns out it was under the bed, but since she hadn't cleaned up, she hadn't found it until now. So they're talking about the other night at the club, Charlie and all that stuff. So then the conversation then turns into them discussing the fact that Charlie actually has a bit of a problem. He actually tends to ask others for money and doesn't pay them back. Dylan had actually told Hudson a while back that Charlie owes him $4,000. That's not good. Why are you asking all these people for money and not paying them back? And then George is like, well, he's okay. I know how much he gets per month. I know what his allowance is. And then Riley, being nosy like we all are, she's like, how much does he get a month? But everybody's like, no, let's not talk about that. But this is definitely concerning. Also, they talk about Brooks because his birthday's coming up, which he says, speaking to Charlie though, when it was Charlie's birthday and Brooks had asked him, how does it feel like you're about to be 30? He says Charlie kind of went off on him and like got super defensive and was like, I'm not the oldest in the group. Emira is. Okay. But yeah, speaking of birthdays, Brooks is turning 25 and Gia had the idea for all of them to go to the Jersey Shore. This actually sounds like a really fun idea. Okay, so it's been a few days later. Charlie has been texting Georgia nonstop for days now about his speaker. Charlie let her borrow a speaker and he's been asking ever since, but she's been so busy that she hasn't been able to return it. Listen, the way they showed Charlie this episode, for someone that's supposedly so rich, he acts like he's broke and like a bum. Which, by the way, Dylan, his roommate, we heard him have a phone call with one of his friends saying that, like, ever since he's started living with Charlie, it's weighed him down because Charlie's so unproductive and, like, being around that is not good. Like, that's how lazy he is. Which is actually kind of sad if you think about it. Okay, so it's the last scene of the episode. Georgia and Danny are meeting up, talking about their stuff. Charlie then joins them. Then they start talking about this vegan restaurant that they're in. So Charlie's like, oh yeah, matter of fact, Ava's dad just bought one and like we're thinking about turning it into a club. And then Georgia's like, oh, well, you don't even involve me in anything anymore. He says, honestly, I'm regretting that I even involve you in my life at all these days. She's like, oh, well, same. There's like an awkward silence. And she says, dude, you got your speaker back. Like, what are you mad about? He says, yeah, but it's your disrespect and your lack of caring. The world doesn't revolve around you. So they start to fight. But Charlie he had this aggressiveness about him that he just goes in on her. He says, like, it's to the point where he says, I gave you a week and you broke our agreement. You're a stupid, delusional bitch. A stupid, delusional bitch. And then Georgia, like, she's had it with him. She's like, dude, everybody here hates you. She's talking about the group. And he says, well, you would not be in this show if it wasn't for me. Remember that. And she says, you still get an allowance from your dad. You get $10,000 a month. You've never worked a day in your life. Everybody hates you. And then he's saying to her, you are dirt poor. You're here because of me. If you were a man, I'd slap you in the face right now. And then he leaves. Wow, that is crazy. That was the end of the episode. The way he behaved was unhinged. And he's literally going in on one of the few people that actually has defended him with the group. He is so pathetic. And listen, I do have to say the one thing I agree with him though is that like it is extremely annoying if you lent something to somebody and they haven't given it to you. That actually happened to me when I was in. There was a specific semester where you know how like when you're in college you have to buy books. But a lot of the times people won't buy the books. They'll like either get like the online version or, borrow it from someone. So I actually bought the books because it was my very first semester and I wanted to make sure I had everything that I needed. And I remember we had an assignment for this particular class where we needed to use that book. So I had just made a friend who didn't have the book and she asked me if she could borrow it. And she said, I'll just borrow it for like a day. I'll take pictures of it and then I'll give it back to you. So I was like, yeah, sure, of course. Why not? You guys, almost like a week went by and she didn't give me back my book. And I was so frustrated. But to my defense, I needed the book for my assignment. Like I actually needed it. So yes, on that point, I do understand that if you let somebody borrow something, give it back. But at the same time, Charlie, you're doing all this over a small ass speaker? Like, yeah, you're definitely not as rich as you say you are, because I know for a fact that if I was a millionaire, I'll probably just order one on Amazon Prime, getting the same day delivery or overnight delivery. Like, it's not that serious. But for him to go in on her in this way, talking to her about you a bitch, no, that was not cool. And it's, like I said, it's actually kind of sad seeing his life. I don't think he might return to the show, given the way he's been portrayed. But you guys, let me know what your thoughts were about this episode. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch y'all next time. Y'all have a great one. Bye.